On this episode of Scots Abroad, we talk to a footballer that when he broke through, he was one of Europe's most hyped talents. We talk about his youth career, breaking through at Dundee United, and how at a very young age he'd always been interested in a career abroad. We talk about his time spent in Portugal, on his development plan at Sporting Lisbon, and the experience he's gained over the past 5 years, and how his current team, Farense, are doing in the second tier. And Scotland, his aspirations. Still as young as 24, he wants to become a full internationalist. This is Scots Abroad with John Walker, and this week's guest, Ryan Gauld. Hello and welcome, Ryan Gauld.
Hi mate, how you doing?
Aye, not bad. How's yourself?
Aye, I'm good mate, I'm good.
How was that trek back from, is it Lake Sois? Is that how you say that team?
Lake Sois. Away up in the north of Portugal. Away up beside Porto, so we had a nice 7-hour bus journey home at 11 o'clock last night.
Yeah, I have been pestering. There was a boy I met on one of my licences who's from Portugal, so I have been pestering him on WhatsApp, sending him a lot of players' names and a lot of team names, going, mate, going to send me a voice note back telling me how I say this team.
There's a few of them. It's not as easy as it looks.
So I've watched the goal. You scored a really good goal last night. A bit of controversy. What are your thoughts on the goal?
Well, when I seen it, obviously Les Choice were asking for a free kick. There was a boy in the ground just before I scored. We didn't kick the ball out, but during the game there was a couple of moments when we had boys on the floor and they would not want to kick the ball out for us. And at that time I think there was only maybe 7 or 8 minutes left, so we were chasing the game and we kind of just took advantage. Down the side the boy was injured. I mean, it doesn't sound great saying it, but
the highlight I seen was, it looks bad on one highlight, but see if you get a different highlight on YouTube, you see that they had the ball in possession and refused to put it out as well. So they were like taking touches of the ball and then clearing it up the park, and then the players went right down off the ground. So they've not put it out either.
Yeah, I think they were more asking just for a free kick than worried about us kicking the ball out. They thought it was a foul on the boy down in the corner. In my eyes, it didn't look like a free kick, and our boy as well that made the tackle said there was nothing in it. They both connected with the ball at the same time. So from our point of view, we're not making too many complaints about the goal. And I think from their side, it's more they were expecting a free kick.
Yeah. More
than the fact we didn't kick the ball out.
It was a really good goal. So that's your 6th goal in 3 games and 8 and 6 since we returned from the winter break. So I think that's 9 goals now. That's your season best.
Yeah, that's my best.
What's changed?
My best goals over a season. I think I'm getting in more attacking positions, like not just with the ball, but without the ball. And lately, I've been getting in the right position when the ball's been on the other side. There's a couple of goals I've scored just nicking in front of somebody at the front post. Like my second goal last week was a header at the front post, believe it or not. Yeah, I described it to older people, I guess, as the old Freddie Lundberg run. It was like a lovely left to right run near post. That's what it sounds like. I kind of picture that myself, Freddie Lundberg doing it. But I left to right. Of the last 7 or 8 goals I've scored, I think 2 or 3 of them have been like that. So I suppose that's the first time I've had that run in my career. That run a good amount of goals in just a few games, so I've just been delighted with that, and hopefully I can keep it going. Yeah,
I mean, you're second in the league, you're chasing promotion. There was another part of your game that we just talked about before we started recording, was that was your 5th yellow card of the season, so that's you're suspended for the next home game, is that correct?
Yeah, the next home game, next Monday night again with Leigh. I think that'll be the first game I missed since I was injured at the start of the season. I missed the first 3 games of the season with a broken rib. But yeah, this will be the first game I'm going to miss out on since then. So it's been a good run of games for me. Maybe that's what's helped with getting more goals as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I think
I've never really had that run.
Yeah, I think for us there was a lot of people saying that it's like it does seem like the most. From the highlights that we see, we roughly get about a 10 to 12 minute highlight package every week that you can find on YouTube. And there's an amazing guy on Twitter called Byron Hutchison who finds everything super quick on you, and they're shared online instantly. This is the most fluid and the most like I remember seeing you when you were coming through at Dundee United. and when I would see just highlights on Sports Scene or games against my team when I would watch you, it's the most like that, like very creative and attacking positions, and the football's really good to watch. So it does seem like finally, like from us watching from the outside, because we can only get highlight packages, as it does look like the player we've remembered, but there does now appear to be a real goal scoring threat. Grew up in Aberdeen. Usual questions. How long was it till you realised that football was the sport? Was there any other sports you were involved in? And then how long was it before you started really attending organised sport?
Well, from a very early age, I would play football with my brother, my older brother, and my dad. And we would, like after school, we would always. Luckily, we lived right next to the public park, and most days when I would come home from school at 5, 6 years old, and the three of us would go and we would just go and kick a ball about together until it got dark, I suppose, and then that carried on right the way through until maybe, I don't know, second or third year of school. When I was going to Dundee United training, there was about an hour and a half between finishing school and having to leave for training, and I would spend maybe an hour and 20 minutes of that hour and a half like up at the park just playing football, and then nip in, get a quick something to eat and a quick shower, and then go down to Dundee for my training. And that's kind of always been the way my life's been, I suppose. It's always been all about football for as long as I can remember. Playing at the park, having a kick about with my brother and my dad. I think I was maybe 7 or 8 when I started playing with Brechin, the same team as John Suter. It was John Suter's dad was our coach. Played there for maybe about 5 or 6 years, and then it was just Dundee United.
You grew up in Aberdeen. Was Aberdeen your football team?
Well, I'm from in between Aberdeen and Dundee, a place called Lawrence Kirk. I never really supported Aberdeen. Even my brother's a big Aberdeen fan, but I've always been more towards Dundee United, just because I started there when I was so young. Before I was really a fan of anybody. I was playing for Dundee United, and we could get into the games. I think we got into the games for free when we were younger. So I would always rather go down there and watch a game down there with my dad than go up to Aberdeen to watch them.
Well, my podcast co-host will be very happy to hear that. He's a massive Dundee United fan. See, when you were growing up, which players did you tend to gravitate towards, and why? Was it always attacking players?
Yeah, always attacking players. Always the midfielders that get more of the ball. Zidane, I loved watching Zidane. Ronaldinho, he was another one I liked watching. And then when Messi burst onto the scene, he was the main one to watch, I suppose, when I was, I don't know, maybe from like 11, 12 years old. He was the main player everybody wanted to watch, and I was no different. He was the best team to watch, and I liked watching that Barcelona team with Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Ronaldinho. For me, that was who I liked to watch the most. That's who I enjoyed seeing them play, and then you go up to the park and try and copy everything that they've done that you've seen in the game the night before.
Can we just talk about that? I know this wasn't one of the things I was going to plan to talk about, but as you brought it up, that mini Messi, although I don't get that because you're both the same height, that mini Messi, new Messi tag that you seem to get attached to very, very quickly at Dundee United, is that almost the biggest blessing, compliment and curse that you could have got at the same time in your career as a young player breaking through?
Absolutely. I think, obviously the compliment being there, like whoever's came up with it meant it to be. They've meant it as a compliment to myself, but at the same time, it's kind of followed me and held me down a wee bit, wherever I've gone. I think the only comparison you can make between us is that we're small and we're left-footed. That's a bit as far as you can go with.
I think there's a few more compliments and similarities that we can put forward, but I know what you're saying. When you were young playing at Brechin, were you an attacking player or did you get moved around a lot?
A left midfielder, always. And like 7 aside, 11 aside, I was always like the left winger.
So you held in that. That's quite good, because I've heard Andy Robertson's interview on Open Goal, and he was saying how he pretty much played everywhere across the midfield and then finally got moved back to left back. When you go to Brechin City, what's the setup like at Brechin City? So you're there from about 6, 7 till about 11 or 12 before you moved to Dundee United. And how far away are you travelling for training for Brechin?
Oh, for Brechin, it was only 10 minutes away. I think we maybe trained there a couple of nights a week at the Brechin High School, and then obviously we'd have the games in the Dundee League on Sundays. And that was really enjoyable. Just from a young age, playing with people I knew, and then getting to train and play with the same boys I knew for a few years. It was good fun. It was a good start to football. Everyone really enjoyed being there, and there's been a few players came out of that team. John Suter, obviously at Hearts.
Yep.
Ewan Spark he was at Brechin in the first team. Now he's up at Elgin.
Yes.
So we had a decent enough wee team.
What makes you move to Dundee United then?
It was, I think I was around about 8 or 9, and we were playing in the Dundee League. So it was a lot easier for the Dundee United scouts to pick up players than, say, if you were playing in the Aberdeen League. Maybe the Aberdeen scouts would be looking at more of their games. And then 8 or 9 years old, I went for a trial game, played there, really enjoyed it, and that was when Ian Cathro was just starting out.
Right. Okay.
He was the coach on my trial. He seemed to like me straight away, and that's how it all started.
And then so you moved to Dundee United, and then that's what, like an hour's travel then for every training session and every game?
Around 45 minutes to an hour, say. That was 3 nights a week. But
Right.
I suppose, luckily, at the same time, John Suter and Ewan Spark, they went into Dundee United as well. So we all lived within 5-10 minutes of each other. Our parents got to have shots about. They didn't hate to do the travel 3 times a week. It was just once a week, luckily for them.
I know from coaching football that genuinely parents need to get every bit of credit possible for the amount of running around they do after their children. It's ridiculous. I've had parents bring a player to a team like an hour and a half away from where they live. It's just phenomenal, man. So yeah, a big shout out to the parents for that.
It's a bit behind the scenes that you maybe really notices, I suppose.
Yeah, all
the travelling they have to do.
Yeah, when the footballers make
all the
it,
weekends
and they fight.
they have to give up, travel all about the country just to see their kid play.
So you're playing history. So I guess we get to Dundee United. You've came through the youth team. You've come through with John Suter. Is Ian Cathro at Dundee United and the youth setup that you're coming through there?
Yeah, he was heavily involved in until around about 14, 15, I think. He was always one of the coaches for our age group. Yeah, it would have been until around 14, 15 years old, and then I think he moved on to another position somewhere else. So
you're at Dundee United. You're coming through the youth team. At what point do you know that you're going to get offered an actual professional contract or a semi-professional contract, whatever the setup is at Dundee United at the time, and what discussions were had? Because obviously you're a very young player at the time and still at school. So what's happening there?
I would have still been at school. Normally, you have to be 16 to sign the professional contract, like just to get a starting wage, pretty much. And I think Dundee United met with me. They would have met with my mum and dad as well, saying that they wanted me to come in full time, the same time as everyone else my age, but it would be more difficult because I was only 15. I wasn't 16 until December, so 6 months later. And we spoke to the school to ask if it was possible to leave, and they said, yeah, no problem. I could leave, and then I just went into the digs in Dundee at 15, and that was me for the next 3 years in there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much how it went.
So at this point, it's probably the best Dundee United side that I remember in my lifetime. At that point, did you have coaches telling you where exactly they thought you would fit in or where you would sit? Because at this point, I think you've got Russell, Mackay, Stevens, Armstrong, all in those kind of front three areas. Do you get spoken to and explained to where your development is and where they see you fitting in at this point, or is it just that you're a really exciting prospect?
Yeah, it's more that, and it showed. They kept just kind of reminding us, and it showed us that the players coming through the youth at Dundee United, they're going to get a chance. You look at that with Stuart Armstrong, Johnny Russell, plenty other players. If you just keep going at your training, just wait your time, your chance is going to come. And I think Dundee United's one of the better clubs in Scotland for doing that, for bringing players through the youth and giving them a chance in the first team. And so it was just basically carry on training the way I was training and keep playing well. And I was just basically hoping for a chance, and luckily I got that.
So yeah, you as you talked about that. So at the end of the 2011-12 season, you got your chance to have a debut versus Motherwell. What do you remember of that? And at what point does Peter Houston tell you, like during the week, that you're involved, or have you just been training with the first team and then the squad's announced?
Well, it was just 2 weeks before that Motherwell game, so there was only like 2 weeks left of the season. I went up to train with the first team for the first time. Luckily, I think it was the day before the game, or 2 days before. It was Hibs away at the time. Just a couple of days before that, I'd done really well in the training, and Peter Houston was really happy with how I'd done. And then he told me I was going to be in the squad to go to Hibs away. So that was my first. I trained with the first team 2 times. Then I went in the squad. I travelled to Hibs away. Done the warm up with all the first team, and then I stayed in the stand to watch the game. And then the last game of the season, Motherwell away, the week after, I was lucky enough to get it was just the last couple of minutes, but I suppose to me that didn't matter. I was only 16. I was just delighted to get a chance, and then that helped me to be involved in the pre-season, the start of the next season.
Yeah, so being involved there, because I mean, you've had your first taste of first team football. You've been involved in the pre-season. Was there any discussions about you maybe going on loan and getting proper exposure to first team football?
No, that was never really talked about. They always told me I'd be in and around the first team, but at the same time always playing games for the 19s just to keep getting game time. It was never spoken about to me about going out on loan. I suppose I just had the kind of jump. I went from one full season at under 19s into getting opportunities with the first team, and because I was always sniffing in and around the first team, I think they didn't feel the need for me to go out on loan when there was the under 19s there, that I could stay with United and get to train every day with the first team, and if I wasn't going to be involved in the game, I could always play in the under 19s game. So I thought that was the better way to carry on my development at that age.
Yeah, I mean, I would say from just being involved in football a little bit, I think that is like definitely the way to go, because being at a club like Dundee United as well, even with the form that they were in, the team they were building, you seen what happened eventually, where Celtic are able to come in, essentially take off 2 of your better players, so you never know really when there's going to be a void needing filled. So I guess Dundee United really couldn't afford someone like yourself who's a developing talent to go out on loan and then maybe have to sell a player because there's a good bid came in and then need to recall you or be without you. So I always think that makes sense to have people within the structure. I guess the quickest developments, you spent a year in the under-19s. Peter Houston then leaves during the 2012-2013 season, and Jackie McNamara comes in. How was that, and how long till Jackie McNamara comes in does he start speaking with you and identifying you as someone that he thinks, yeah, that's a boy that I need in my team?
Well, when Jackie initially became manager, I was off ill at the time. I had glandular fever, so I missed 3 months as soon as he came in, and so I was a bit gutted, from being in and around the first team so young to then I was just completely away from training ground. I was at home for 2 or 3 months.
Right. Okay.
And that was a tough one to take, but I think Dundee United were playing up at Aberdeen, and the youth team coach Stevie Campbell, he stopped in by my house on the way home, and he basically just reassured me that I was in Jackie's plans. He really liked me, so that was reassuring for me, for my dad to hear. And then obviously when I got back fit, he showed that he liked me because I was involved straight away. He wasn't scared to throw me in against, in the derbies close to the end of the game when we were needing a goal, or semi-final against Celtic. So I think he was huge for me. He kind of gave me the platform to go and express myself and show what I can do up against the better teams of the league, and I'm grateful to him for that.
Do you think that is a real known quality in somebody like Jackie McNamara, when coming through a youth player, I guess, at Celtic and Hibs the way he did? Do you think that helps when somebody's actually came through a structure at a higher team? They know the benefits of youth team players coming through.
Yeah, and he knows the benefit for the club. On a financial side as well. You look at what he done with Andy Robertson, bringing him in from Queen's Park, and I suppose the rest is history with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he always wanted to give young boys a game because he knew it was good for the whole squad to keep everyone on their toes, and it was also good financially for the club. So I think he tried his best in that sense.
So April 2013, so you've came back, you're in, Jackie McNamara's there, and you play in the St Johnstone game, and this is the game where you score your first professional goal. What do you remember of the goal?
To be honest, I just remember just running through, and it seemed as if there was like just me and an open goal, and all of a sudden I think it was the boy Stephen Anderson sliding in, the goalie rushing out, and I've just managed to kind of toe it in between them. And I'd actually had a really good first half, apart from scoring the goal as well. So the goal came as like an extra bonus. And at that time, I think St Johnstone was a really tough place to go. It was a really physical place to go. So I was kind of surprised when the squad went up and I was starting, because that was like a very, very physical St Johnstone team. But luckily I managed to back up Jackie's decision to play me. And yeah, so first start, first goal, that was a good day.
And then so you finish that season off, you've got another pre-season with the first team, you're fully fit, Jackie McNamara's backing you. The 2013-14 season, I guess, is really when everyone, including myself, really becomes aware of who Ryan Gauld is. So you're a first team regular at 18 years old, scored 8 goals in 38 games, you've reached the final with Dundee United against St Johnstone. Did that really kind of validate that you were going to be a professional footballer? Is that when you felt most comfortable looking around you and realising, because at that time I remember the semi-final against Rangers where you dominated, and I remember really the only real interest I had in watching sports scene was just seeing Dundee United highlights, because at that time the Dundee United team were playing the best football in the league as far as I was concerned. Is that something that you felt as well?
Yeah, definitely. We were a very attacking team. We wanted to have a lot of the ball. Every time we had the ball, we were looking to go and score and go and cause trouble. And I suppose it's that kind of thing that we went on a run of, I think it was 6 or 7 games where we scored 4 or more goals, which isn't done a lot. We all got along off the pitch as well, so it helped that as soon as we went on the pitch, we were all on the same page. We all had kind of similar styles of football. We just brought different things to the game, and we all complemented each other really well on the pitch. And I think that season was definitely kind of like my breakthrough season. The most games I'd played, the most goals I'd scored. That's a season I look back on, and I think very highly of it. I think it was a great season, not just for myself but for the club. The only disappointing part was the cup final at the end of the season. That was the disappointing one.
How come you didn't start the cup final?
Because that season St Johnstone were kind of like our bogey team. We played against them 4 times because we played them in the split as well. We won the first one at Tannadice early on in the season, and then the next 3 times we beat them. The next 3 times we played them, they beat us, and we just never really looked like beating them. And then just in the last meeting before the final, Jackie said he was going to go with the team that beat St Johnstone at the start of the season, and I was on the bench for the start of that one. So unfortunately, it never worked out. But that was the reasoning for me being on the bench.
Yeah, I guess a very disappointing to what was otherwise a very good season for Dundee United and a very good personal season for you. There was loads of stories about yourself that season. So there was links to Celtic, there was links to Man U. I believe there was a game that David Moyes came and watched. What is that like for you at the moment when you start hearing stuff like that there is interest from Celtic, who at the time were the dominant force in the SPL, Man United, David Moyes has just went there and taken over, and there's going to be a whole fresh Man United side. Where are you in your head at that point? Because as a young boy, I guess, coming through, all you've wanted to do is play football. You're finally getting that at Dundee United, and then the realisation that there could be a huge move ahead.
At the time, I didn't think too much of it because, to be honest, I was thinking in my head, like, how much of this is really true. You never really know. That wasn't too worrying for me. I've never been the kind of person to let things like that get into my head, even when I was younger. It's kind of things that I don't listen to. I'll listen to it if my agent tells me it's true, or if somebody at the club tells me what's going on. But if it's just in the papers or if it's just people talking, then it's not really something I'm gonna listen to or let get in my head, because it's never going to be beneficial if there's lies going in your head. And
Yeah.
you just have to concentrate on your football. And if you're doing well enough, then these people will be looking at you. So that was what was basically going through my head at the time.
And I guess that did come true. So one of the biggest names in European football, from as long as I can remember, Sporting Lisbon, they've come in for you. At what point do you realise, you and your agent, that it is a real bid? There is a solid bid there. And I mean, what's just going through your head there? Is European football always been something that you've fancied?
Yeah, since maybe 12, 13, 14. I've always said I would like to play abroad. I always felt I was more suited to it, just with being smaller and not so physical. I always thought that I might struggle more down in England than I would abroad. And I just wanted to try something different. I knew that a lot of people, a lot of Scottish players, a lot of English players didn't really try going abroad. So it's something that I just wanted to try, just for myself, to see what it was like. And then with Sporting, it was just my first day back at pre-season with United. Everyone was getting ready to go and do the bleep test on the first day back. And Jackie McNamara pulled me aside. He's like, "You're not doing the bleep test today. Sporting Lisbon have put a bid in for you, and we've accepted it. So you're going to go over there and negotiate with them." And that was like a 2-in-1 for me, not having to do the bleep test and getting to jump on a plane and come over to Lisbon to kind of negotiate. So that was like a week I'll never forget. That was unbelievable. Just all the stuff that happened in that week. It was just it was a great feeling.
Who do you consult with in that scenario? Is it a partner? Is it a family member? And we talked about Ian Cathro, who seems to be someone that keeps popping up on everything I've read. So he's at Rio Ave. So he's actually went from Dundee United over to Portugal. I believe Barry Douglas has went from Dundee United to Lech Poznan. So are any of these people you're speaking to find out their advice, even Jackie McNamara, and what they think you should do next?
I spoke to Ian Cathro on what he thought of the idea of going there, because I knew he'd been at Rio Ave for a year or two already. So I spoke to him to see what his thoughts were. He said that I should go for it and just give it everything I can. And to be honest, I think he's maybe the only person I spoke to about it, because he's the only person that knew the country. He'd coached against Sporting, so he knew what the club was like. And then the rest of it was just making my mind up for myself. And I came over, I seen the stadium, I seen the city, and I just loved it. So things just went ahead.
What was the negotiation discussion like? So there's an interview with, obviously there's a lot of talk about Billy Gilmore just now. There's an interview with him from a couple of months after he left Rangers, and it wasn't directly quoted, but he almost insinuated that from speaking to Chelsea, the integration plan into the first team was much better than what he was maybe perceived to be at Rangers, where he was maybe going to play at the age of 16 years old. And at Chelsea, it was, you're going to do a year in the 19s, a year in the 23s, and then you'll definitely be integrated into the first team. Is that what was spoken at with Marco Silva and Sporting Lisbon as well, that you were going to come in and go to the B team? Was that all up front?
Yeah, they told me that I shouldn't expect to come in and be heavily involved straight away, because coming from Scottish football to Portuguese football, there's a big difference, and that it wouldn't just click overnight, that it would take time to pick up on everything. So they told me there and then that I would play a heavy part in the B team. I would be involved in the League Cup games for the A team. So that's how that season went. So there was no surprises. I think it was a surprise to everyone back in Scotland when I was put into the B team. They thought that I'd went there and I'd not done very well in the pre-season or whatever, but that was always part of the plan. I went and played. I think I played around 25, 30 games for the B team. Played a couple of games for the first team as well. So it was a good first year, I thought, because in the end I adapted quite well to the football, to the life. I thought it was a good start for me that first year.
So you said from about 11 or 12, the idea of football abroad was always something you were doing. Whilst at school, did you do any languages? Was there any preparation for this, or are you completely English only? I'm moving to Portugal. I need lessons.
Basically, I only spoke English. I done French in school, but very very basic French. So it was from day one. It was kind of tough. I wasn't sure if anyone was going to speak English and how long it would take to pick up the language. So they were all things. But at the same time, I was really looking forward to learning a new language. That's something that has always appealed to me. I did only 3 lessons when I first got to Portugal, and then the rest of the time I just learnt from speaking to people, from chatting to folk in the changing room, going out and about to the shop, and that's the main way that I learned Portuguese.
Is there not really a structure then for, because I know it is much more common for foreign players to come to the UK, and the assumption is just that everyone speaks English, because, see, to be honest, when you go to Portugal, when you go to Germany, when you go to Spain on holiday, the English is spoken very well. So it really, is there a structure of you're going to be doing lessons outside of football training as well? This is important, or was it just left up to you to do that?
No, it was completely left up to me. Obviously, it's more a thing that it's not necessary to learn the language really, but it's appreciated by the people here, because I suppose when people come to Scotland on holiday or sign for clubs there, we expect them to speak our language.
Yeah.
So I thought, obviously, Portuguese people are going to be thinking the exact same. I did try my best to learn the language. It took me a couple of years before I was actually comfortable to have conversations and go out about, do everything in 100% Portuguese. But I eventually got hold of it, and now I suppose it's kind of like second nature to me, speaking the language. So it's something that I'm delighted I've kept going with, because after a year or two, it would have been, we're not speaking anything, it would have been easy to kind of to give up and say, it's too hard, I'm not going to bother. But I'm glad I persevered with it, kept pushing myself to learn, and now I'm fluent enough.
Is there, on that day one, so is there massive differences? So your first training session then with the club, so it's still pre-season for them as well. Is there a massive notable difference in what the setup's like and what training's like, or is pre-season quite similar over in Portugal?
The pre-season's very different. My first pre-season, there was no off the ball running, everything was with the ball, so I was delighted with that to begin with. And then it's mostly just you're playing games all the time. You're playing a game every 2 or 3 days just to build up your fitness, and the training's more the manager getting across is what he wants tactically, and then you've got plenty of games in pre-season to build up your fitness, and also at the same time build on the tactical work that the manager's doing. But the setup, the training ground at Sporting's unbelievable. They've got just everything you could think of, and also they got a side for the youth team, and like all the kids from around about 10 until 18, they've got rooms for them. They all stay together, eat together, and they train at night. In the morning, they go to school. For the young boys, it's not just a training ground. It's their life.
Yeah.
The younger boys, that's the way they live, is being at the training ground. It's just an unbelievable kind of setup that they've got.
So we've talked about it already. So you're loaned out to the B team. You made your debut for the B team. Can you remember much about that?
My first game for the B team was actually against Farense, my team that I'm playing for now. I'd only trained with the B team maybe 2 or 3 days, so they told me I was going to be on the bench because they'd been working for the last 6 weeks to build towards the first game of the season, and I'd only been there 2 or 3 days, so started on the bench. I came on at half time. I think we drew 1-1. I think, did we?
Yes.
Either drew 1-1 or we lost 1-0. I can't remember.
It was 1-1.
And we missed a penalty that day as well, actually. But yeah, I think it's just a coincidence that was my first game in Portugal, and that's where I've ended up now. Yeah,
there seems to actually be a wee bit of a recurring theme, because your first goal for the B team's on 8th of September, and that was against another team that you went on to play for, Aves.
Yeah. Against Aves, yeah.
Yeah, how does that feel then? So you're brought in as, you've left Dundee United, so we all know you as a number 10 or a fairly forward-thinking midfield player. So you've been brought in that way, you're in the B team, and you get off to a fly, you get an early goal. Is that kind of a wee bit of a relief that for you knew the plan was to drop to the B team anyway? You've went into the B team very quickly, you've got your starting place after a sub-appearance, and you've scored a goal.
It was actually quite a big relief for me, because there was quite a big thing had been made over here about the amount of money that Sporting had paid for me. You know, I felt even from the beginning quite a bit of pressure to kind of do well and perform. So getting my first goal, it was more of a relief than anything else, I think, just to finally get it behind me, and then I could try and kick on and score a few more.
From speaking to you, Ryan, a wee bit before this, I think that is something that maybe myself's not appreciated. See, for somebody that's on Twitter and watches football and has opinions about every player, and we talked about some of the reasons why you might be off social media and some of the press coverage of your move. I think sometimes people do forget that you were an 18-year-old kid that had moved to a foreign country, and there was a lot of pressure, because it'd be the same with a Rangers or Celtic. If Rangers and Celtic had went out and paid $3 million for a Portuguese youngster, the fans would be the same here and going, what, we don't have a young player in our youth team that's got the same ability. Why are we spending money on someone that's 18 when we've got all this youth team? So I think sometimes people do. I hate that. It was kind of Ziggy Gordon that brought us to my attention. I think it's almost, people forget that it's like, multi-million paid footballers. You don't feel sorry for them, but I do think people forget there is a human side of somebody that's moved country 18 years old.
We're not machines. We're not just. It would be class if Sporting signed me and then right, you cost $3 million, so you'll score 10 to 15 goals every season. If it worked like that, it'd be perfect. But unfortunately, it doesn't go that way. It's just, you have to work hard to get what you want from the game, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about that. You'd been told in the programme of how you were going to develop that you would play the League Cup games over the Christmas period. So you're brought into the Sporting first team. The manager's Marco Silva at the time, yes?
Yeah.
How was being part in the first team and being part of the league fixtures over Christmas then? And can you remember which players were there at the time?
It wasn't. I was only really playing games with the B team. Most of the time, I was training with the first team.
Right. Okay.
So I knew all the boys I was going to be playing with. Like, I trained with them every day, and also other boys from our B team. They were called up for the League Cup games as well. So there was boys like the boys in our B team that got called up was the likes of Podence that just signed for Wolves.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Domingos Duarte, he plays centre back for Granada now in La Liga. Gelson Martins plays for Monaco now. He initially signed for Atletico Madrid from Sporting. He's at Monaco now. So we had a very good B team. When we did play the League Cup games, we put on good displays, and we went up to Guimarães, which is like the fourth or fifth best team in Portugal, and we beat their first team 2-1. I think it was. We had a very young team, but there was some very good players, and the competition for myself to get into the first team with these boys was really difficult. Sporting paid a little bit of money for me, but these boys were easily worth the same amount.
So I guess the highlight of that we run was the Belenenses game then.
Yeah, the 2 goals I scored there.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, you've started a couple of games, you're playing the cup game. 20 minutes into away to Belenenses, you've scored 2 goals. Is it at that point are you starting to? Is there any part of you that's believing a wee bit of hype, going, this is all right, playing first team football for Sporting Lisbon?
Yeah, well, after the games, I felt a little bit more settled by that point. I'd done well in the couple of games I was involved with the first team, so I was kind of thinking that I deserved more of a shot. But I think they just wanted to take their time, not rush things, not just like, you scored 2 goals, get them into the first team straight away. They had their plan for me, and they didn't want to rush ahead just because I was doing well when I was involved. But then, just a few weeks after that, I think is when I made my league appearances off the bench for the first team. Yeah, I think it was just a few weeks after the Belenenses game. So
who was that? Who was that against again?
So I came on for around about 20 minutes against Rio Ave, and then the week after I came on for about half an hour against Gil Vicente. And
then so I guess you go back and spend the rest of the time with the B team. You finished 5th. A pretty reasonable performance for the B team if you look at where they've ended up since then. And then you spend the following season, the B team, 5 goals, 38 games, another reasonable season. See, at this point, after 2 years in Portugal, are you noticing any differences in your game? Are the coaches explaining differences into your game?
I noticed a big difference personally. Like, I was more adapted to the style of football that was being played over here, and I was fitting in a lot better in the changing room, on the pitch. Everything, I just felt more comfortable. So I think just playing all the time, especially in that second year when I was playing week in, week out, it was a big year for me, just kind of to show what I can do. And I felt like I had a good season personally. I didn't maybe get enough goals, but I was playing a bit deeper. So that's my excuse for not managing too many goals. But no, I felt like I had a good year, and maybe a bit more deserving of a couple of opportunities in the first team.
And then I guess so the following season you're spoken to. Are you dictated to really which teams that you're going to go to on loan, or is there an option? Just because I'm noticing that you went with a teammate, so I was wondering if there is something that Sporting normally do where they reach out to clubs to loan people out.
I think, Sporting get in touch with the teams that they've got good relationships with, and just to tell them what players they're going to have available for loans. And the manager at Setubal, he really liked me, so, and another boy, the right back. So that's the way the both of us went there.
How far away is Setubal from Lisbon?
It's only like 30 minutes, so I didn't have to move house or anything.
Okay.
Which is that played a big part for me, because I only knew Lisbon and Portugal. I didn't know anywhere else. So the fact that it was just half an hour away, I didn't have to move house, nothing. That was obviously, it was beneficial for me as well as getting the chance to be involved in a first division team.
Yeah, the Premier Football. So then you get your game, you get against Porto. So it's 20 months since you've played your previous Premier Liga game. Is that a huge relief now that you're out of, not out of, but you're gone away from the B team at this point? You're in the top division. You're where you wanted. I know you're not playing for Lisbon at the time, but you're where you moved to play for. Is that the relief, the kind of pressure off your shoulders a wee bit?
Yeah, it was. It was a big relief. I'd struggled for minutes at the start of the season, and the team started so well, so I couldn't really have any complaints. And then I got maybe just 10 minutes against Porto. No, it was good to get playing in the first division. It was my first taste of the first division for a long time, so I was hoping that would be the start of more game time in the first league.
Yeah, and then there's a very weird situation, and this is something that I think even myself has told this story incorrectly, and I'm hoping you can clear up here. What happened between the 14th of December and the 4th of January 2017? Because Setubal have played Lisbon twice in the Cup, and whatever happens in the Cup, you guys aren't. You and Andre Heraldes are not eligible to play. You can play against Lisbon, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So there's the Portuguese Cup and then the League Cup. Obviously the Portuguese Cup being the equivalent of the Scottish Cup. Not the same as the League Cup, because like the Portuguese FA, they're the ones who control the league and the League Cup. But the Portuguese Cup is run by someone else.
Right, okay.
And so we were allowed to play in that game. And so we both played. And then we got beat 1-0. So that was us knocked out of that cup. And there was no problem. And then we played Sporting again in the League Cup. That's the one that we couldn't play.
Right, okay.
And Setubal, we got a penalty in like the 94th minute to knock out Sporting, and we went on to the semi-final. And it was a controversial penalty, and Sporting weren't happy with it. And then basically the next morning, when me and Andre Gerald, the other boy on loan, we went into training the next morning, and we both got a phone call from one of the directors at Sporting, basically saying the loan had been cancelled, and we had to return to Sporting immediately without us doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
And they they held us back that year.
Yeah, okay.
And it came at an annoying time for me, because I was 6 or 7 games in a row in the first division, and I was feeling good, so that was kind of frustrating for me.
How hard is it then to go back and then you're playing Premier Football, your team had just moved into a semi-final, which you would then be eligible to play for, and then you're recalled on loan and put into the B team, who are still in the second division. There's obviously so much you can't say, because it would be frustrating at the club at the time, but how does that feel then? Because you're training with the first team, as you said. It feels like there's a wee bit of cutting off your nose to spite your face, and the fact that you and Haral would have been developing much better playing first team football in top flight.
Yeah.
And
it was very frustrating, especially having spent the first 2 seasons in the B team and feeling like I deserved the jump up to the Premier League, and then to only do 6 months and get it cut short, not because of us. It was very frustrating, and something we had no control over. So that it was a really frustrating few weeks, and then we just had to get our heads down and start training hard and playing hard and make sure that for the next season we were ready to go back to a first division team.
Yeah, and I feel like you did well once you finally got in the team. After a few weeks, yourself and Harold were back in the team, and the results did pick up for a wee bit, but they petered off. But you came into the Sporting B team where I think they were 1 point above the relegation playoff zones, and I think they finished in mid-table. So I guess from where they were when you came in to where you finished, it was a fairly respectable 6 months, but not the 6 months you wanted.
It was just more for a personal point of view. I was more thinking of just making sure I was playing to keep my fitness up, so that I could hopefully start fresh somewhere new at the beginning of the next season.
And then that happens, another loan spell. Is Aves close to Lisbon as well then?
No, that's up in the north of Portugal. That's up beside Porto.
So that's a relocation within the country.
Yeah, that was my first time I moved away from Lisbon. I was interested to begin with, but I really enjoyed it. There was another boy up there on loan from Sporting as well. He went up a couple of weeks before me, so he kind of helped to ease me into the team, into the changing room. But no, it was a good start to that season. Playing a few games, scoring again. I think it was only my first or second start for them. I managed to get a goal, and then just a couple of weeks later, I got injured, and that held me back again. And during that time, our manager got the sack. So a new manager came in whilst I was injured, which made it, very difficult to come back in when everyone else was 100% fit. Just getting back to fitness to try and win a place in the team was difficult, and I ended up just playing more off the bench in that period than the rest of that season.
Yeah, I guess that's something I want to touch on, because you've just talked about Jackie McNamara. I guess having that injury in this scenario where you had glandular fever before, you're a lone player that the Aves manager has no. I guess you've no real money in the bank with him. You've no really any debt in the ledger,
no.
So he can't call on you and go, I know you'll be fine when you come back. Does that just completely ruin and disrupt any sort of advantage you had from going on loan then?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, having an injury at any point is never nice, and it's not going to help you. But I suppose being on loan, there's not the need for them to rush me back because I'm their player or whatever. So yeah, it was just a frustrating, after such a good start to the season. It was frustrating the way that kind of happened.
Yeah. So I just wanted so Real went on to win the cup that year. The question I have is, do you get a medal for that, for having featured in earlier rounds, or is it just the squad that's on the match day?
No, I got a medal. I played in every game apart from the semi-final and the final. The final was against Sporting, but I was eligible to play because it was the Portuguese Cup.
Yep.
So I was eligible to play that game. Just the manager's decision to leave me in the stand, that was a frustrating one, but we managed to win at the end of the day. So
yeah, I guess
we were delighted with that.
From doing my investigation, I mean, what do you remember of the quarter final against Rio Ave? Because that was from doing my research. That seems like a bit of a mental. I would say confidence booster. I can't find any highlights, but do you want to tell the story? I mean, you came on with no time to spare at 3-1 down.
Yeah,
correct?
I think there was only maybe 5 minutes at a push left, and we were 3-1 down, and I felt like the man, I hadn't played for a few weeks, like not even off the bench, and I felt like the manager was just chucking me on to try and keep me happy. So I was kind of going on angry and frustrated because I thought he was doing it just to try and shut me up, because I'd been kind of moaning a wee bit that I wasn't playing enough. And then we managed to score 2 goals in the last 5 or 6 minutes to take it to extra time, and then we went 4-3 up in extra time. Rio Ave equalised, and then it went to penalties. And I've volunteered to hit the first pen. Luckily, the keeper's got a hand on it, but luckily it went in. And then everyone scored all the penalties apart from the fifth one for Rio Ave. They missed, and that was us into the semis.
Yeah, so I'm glad you got a medal then, because I mean that's something that's I don't think is actually reported here, because I don't think I've seen that in any of the articles I've said that anyone said that you have a medal. So that's good that we can clear that up, that you have won a medal before we go on to your future aspirations with Farense. So the following season you return, and Farense have come in. What do you know about them at that point, and how is that sold? Because that's a team in Liga Pro, which is the second tier where you are just now.
To be honest, I didn't know too much about them. But I spoke with the manager on the phone. The president of Farense came up to Lisbon to meet me, because I was obviously up there doing pre-season with Sporting. They explained the project, what they were planning, and Farense they've got quite a good history in Portugal. They were in the first division for a lot of years, and then they had a bit of money problems, I think, and they got relegated down to the lower leagues, but they've been building themselves back up, and it's a big club. It's actually one of the better supported ones in all of Portugal, and they've got good projects to build the team back up to being one of the better teams in the Premier League. So that was something that I was interested in trying to be a part of and trying to help get them on their way.
So you come in, you make your debut. Your debut is marred by a red card, but it's not your own red card. One of the other midfielders gets sent off, and then they have to make a sub. I'm guessing is that the, let me guess right? Is that the curse of being a 10 or a forward-thinking player, whereby if a player does fuck up a little bit and get sent off, that you guys are probably the first ones to get hooked and replaced?
I think that as well, but I think the substitution was more thought of as I hadn't played any pre-season game, so I was quite not unfit, but I wasn't match fit at the time.
Right.
So I think just to save up off 10 or 15 minutes into the second half, I think they just thought they would take me off there and then, and get another defender on to try and keep it solid at the back, I suppose.
Yeah. So it was in this season that we actually started this podcast and this Scots Abroad, and following yourself, Liam Henderson, Jack Harper and David Bates at the time at Hamburg. So over the next 3 or 4 months, we'd seen like an improving performance in Farense. We'd seen the results go up. How was your feeling? Did you feel that you found your best position? Because it felt like I'd seen some games where you were maybe playing as 2 in the midfield, but then I felt like he'd pushed you on as a 10 and you were playing in that position now. Was that you feeling more comfortable and back to what you knew as an attacking player?
Yeah, a lot more comfortable. I was playing in the position that I like the best, like number 10. So I was happy to just be there and to be playing games. Because the year before I was in and out, and then I was mostly just coming off the bench. So to be starting games week in, week out is what my aim was at the start of that season. I just want to be playing again and enjoying it. And if you can do that in the position you prefer the most, then it's just it's an added bonus, really.
Yeah, and you're ever improving form, and we got to the end of December. A 5-0 win on what turned out to be your last game at the club. Do you remember the goals? Because the second goal, I think, barring a Scotland free kick, which I can't find, the second goal for me is the best goal you've scored.
The second one was a good volley from the edge of the box. I would say that's up there with my goal for United against St Mirren.
Yes.
They two are probably my two best ones. And that was actually the first time I'd scored for Farense was the 2 goals in that game. So yeah, they were my 2 better ones, I think.
Yeah, the 2 goals in that game could not have been 2 more different goals, I think. It was the first goal was a rebound off the post.
The first one was the kind of goal nobody wants to see, but you take it. Just came back off the post and it fell at my right foot, and I started panicking. I was like, oh no, not my right foot. But I managed to just throw it in. And then I think if the second one came to my right foot, it would have been a different story. But luckily it came on my left, and I've got it well.
I think for myself, from what I've seen of the celebrations from the right foot tap in from 2 yards, was everyone seemed to be very involved in the celebration. It was the whole team that was around you. Do people know that you're going on loan to Hibs at that point?
No, they didn't know. They just found out the week after that. I think it was more just because I hadn't scored in, I think it was maybe 10 or 11 games. I hadn't scored. Everyone was having a wee bit of banter and that, saying, "Nah, you never score goals," blah blah blah. So I think it was everyone was just in a bit of shock and a bit of disbelief that I'd managed to put one in.
So it doesn't really matter which country you're in. Football players are all the same with a ribbon.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly the same.
So I was speaking to Paul before we arranged this interview. The Hibs move, firstly, you really upset us as a podcast, because that meant we could no longer cover you, or else we'd have been changing the rules. Was the motivation behind the Hibs move Scotland?
I think when I took the Hibs move, I kind of knew I wasn't going to be getting a chance at Sporting the year after. So I was kind of looking on, kind of trying to be seen again, because like you've said, there's not so much. People don't see as much over here, especially in the second league. So I was thinking if I could go and do a good 6 months, a good second half of the season at Hibs, then it might put me back on the radar of some people that had maybe forgotten about me or had forgotten what I could do. So that was the thinking behind going to Hibs.
Was there ever any other Scottish teams interested in looking at you? I remember many articles when Pedro Caixinha came into Rangers that there was this link. Was that solely a link of papers being lazy and going, we have a Scottish boy in Portugal, we have a Portuguese manager at a Scottish team, Ryan Gauld might be going to Rangers? Was there ever any truth in those rumours?
No, absolutely nothing. Not one bit of contact. It was just, like you say, people putting two and two together just because I was playing in Portugal. There was a Portuguese manager. They thought, oh, he'll be interested, but no, there was nothing, absolutely nothing in it. That was just one of the stories to try and rile people up, I think.
So the Hibs moves happened. You played a couple of games, then you get an injury. Was it just a wee bit unlucky at Hibs? Because from looking at the players they had when you had signed on loan, I remember watching the St Mirren game, your first game there. I'm a Rangers fan, so it wasn't really of any interest to me, but it was just interesting to see how you'd maybe adapt, because it had players like Scott Allen, you'd Canberry, that there was good players in that team. Was it just unlucky getting the injury and then not really getting back in?
Yeah, I think so. Like I only felt like I was starting to kind of get back into the swing of things after 3 or 4 games, and then obviously I pulled my hamstring again, so I was injured for another. I think I was stopped for about 6 weeks, and I came back and done maybe 2 training sessions, and I felt it again, so I had to stop another 2 weeks. It was just that was the most frustrating thing. I couldn't really get any momentum, and then towards the end of the season, Hibs didn't really have too much to play for. So I think the manager was just wanting to give game time to the boys he was going to be using the next season, and the younger boys to try and give them a bit of experience, which I totally understand, because I was just on loan. So if he had no interest in signing me, then it's quite right. He should have given the boys a game that he was planning on keeping for the next year, and that's what he done. I've no complaints about that. It's just frustrating that I didn't do as well as some people had hoped for, as I'd hoped for. It just wasn't exactly a 6 months to remember.
Yeah. Did you notice a huge difference in, so you talked about the timing of the move to Lisbon, where you've kind of managed to dodge out the pre-season bleep test and you've went to Sporting. You've noticed the training in pre-season is all ball work. There's no empty running. There's no pointless running. Did you go back to Hibs and then did you see that creeping back in to your life where you didn't want to be that, or had the coaching and training developed between your time away?
Yeah, not really. There wasn't so much. Obviously, I wasn't there for pre-season, so it was a wee bit different. Yeah, there wasn't too much difference between, like there wasn't a lot of running sessions when I was back at Hibs with Lennon or with Heckenbottom. There wasn't much. It was just unfortunate with injury, and I knew that when I went back, it would maybe take me 3 or 4 games to kind of get back into it.
Yeah.
Just unfortunate that during that time I got the injury. Things just never really picked up from there, I think. So
outside of the form, was there any part of you that had decided, even with the Hibs move, so even injury aside, that seeing the football, seeing the training, that you'd kind of went, this isn't for me. I don't see myself playing football in the UK. I do want to find a move back abroad.
I don't think it was so much because I didn't like things in Scotland, but I enjoyed it that much over here that I thought I would rather get back. I feel like I'm better suited to the Portuguese football, and I just felt like I was more comfortable. I was more, like as soon as you play one bad game in Scotland, everyone's on top of you saying a heap of rubbish about you in the papers and everything. Over here, it's a bit more laid back, right? There's not that kind of pressure on you. So that was something that kind of played a wee part in me coming back here. And then obviously just with knowing Farense, knowing the club, that made my decision to come here that much easier.
Yeah, so as exactly what they explained to you the season before then, the same idea, the blueprint for trying to get back to Primera Liga, and that you wanted to be part of it, and it was the same setup. So, I mean, I guess that's an easy decision. With Farense,
Yeah,
this is the form of your life just now, I would say, especially developing at the age you are. You're now abroad.
definitely goal scoring. Yeah.
What are your ambitions for the next 2 years? Because you've got a 2-year deal with the option of a year's extension.
Yeah, so I've got one. I've got next season as well, and then it's an option year. But I suppose at this moment, I'm just looking to kind of help Farense as much as possible. Get into the we're in a good position just now. It'll totally depend on us, I suppose, if we get the promotion or not. But we've been looking. We went through a tough patch in January. We went maybe 3 or 4 games. We couldn't get a win, but thankfully we're out of that now. And we've had some good results lately, and hopefully we can do enough to get us over the line at the end. There's only 10 games left, and we'll all be doing everything we can to get Farense back to the Primera Liga.
Yeah,
so like you said.
Yeah, as you said, it's 10 games left. It should Nacional at the top, but there is an absolute cluster of teams. So it's not even like you're keeping you're not even just keeping that 6-point gap at the automatic promotion off of one team. There's like 6 teams separated by 2 points.
Yeah, aye. And the thing is, within the next 5 or 6 weeks, all of us are going to be playing against each other. Either we'll all be drawing with each other and we'll all still be as close as ever come the end of the season, or it just takes 1 or 2 teams to go on a good run, and then the gap opens up again. I mean, we've already had a 10-point gap this season. The other team below us, Farense, have clawed it back to 6, but we play them in a few weeks, so you never know. We just need to win that one, and it could go back to 9 points.
Yeah.
So it's really taking it game by game, getting as much points as we can now in the end of the season, and hopefully it'll be enough.
So I guess one of the final questions on your time abroad that I'd like to ask is, you mentioned it at the start of the interview, it's not really something you see a lot of English or Scottish players going abroad. It is starting to change. If you look at some of the English boys that went over to Dortmund, why do you think that so few Scottish footballers do go abroad? Because from speaking to like Ziggy Gordon, it can't be lack of opportunity, because there must always be teams interested in taking Scottish players abroad. Like I know at Glenn Middleton at Rangers, there was a link with a Dutch second division side as well. So there are definitely teams sniffing around. Why do you think it is?
I'm not too sure. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's a cultural thing that we don't maybe like to leave our comfort zone too much, and with learning other languages and stuff. But for different people, it could be different reasons. Maybe also the financial side. I know, like the financial side in Britain, it's a lot better than Europe, I think. So there could be that side of it. There could be the side that people don't want to be too far away from their families. There could be a heap of different reasons why people don't want to do it. But from my end, it's something I always wanted to do since I was young. So as soon as I got the opportunity to do it, I was never going to turn it down. I've never looked back since, really.
Yeah, and I guess on that, if there was any advice that you could give to any young footballers, so if there was a 17-year-old footballer coming through at Dundee United with interest abroad, is there any advice you would give him, whether it be moving with a family member, moving with a partner, learning the language quickly? Is there anything really that stood out to you that you would do differently, or do you think that you've done pretty well to adapt quickly to the culture and the setup?
I don't really think there's anything I could have done differently, to be fair. My girlfriend, she was in university at the time, and it was best for her to focus on what she wants to do while I'm over here. And she completed university. She lives over here with me now. I tried to learn the language as quickly as possible. It took me maybe longer than it might take other people, but I tried my best to pick up as soon as I could. So it's basically just kind of throwing yourself in at the deep end and just making the most of it while you can, because you don't know how long the opportunity is going to last. So I think just make the most of it while you can, while you've got the opportunity to do it. Go and give it all you've got.
I was very secretive to people about doing this interview because I didn't want too many people knowing before it actually comes out. But the guy I mentioned before, Byron Hutchison, who does all the social media stuff. I mean, honestly, if you search his name, it is just all Ryan Gauld. He wanted me to ask you: is there any other countries that you'd fancy playing in going forward?
Yeah, I could see myself playing in other countries. I don't know which countries really, but I can see myself wanting to try at least one other country. I'm only 24 just now, so hopefully I can get the chance to do that someday. I've not really got any country specifically in mind. I would be open to anything. Just once I feel like my time's up in Portugal, I would like to go and try and experience something new.
Yeah, and I think you've just hit the nail on the head, and I think it's exactly what I sent you and Paul in the email. I think it's hilarious. You might be the youngest written off footballer that I've ever known in my lifetime. Like, I can see why you're off social media. The way people talk about you, you would think you were like 32.
Yeah. Well, I was when I was on social media, I was getting compared to like Freddie Adu, all these ex wonder kids that they still went on to do all right, most of them. So that's how I never really liked that whole mini Messi thing from the start.
Yeah.
You hear about so many wonder kids, but it's so tough to actually kick on and have a really successful career. It's not as easy as everyone thinks. So, I'm still only 24. I've got plenty of time.
Yeah. So this whole segment's called Scots Abroad. It's interviews about Scottish players. So like you said, you're 24. You came through the Scotland setup. You've played at under 19s. You've played at under 21s. So I guess there is still ambitious there. What do you remember of being involved in the under 19s? Because you were involved in the under 19s at 15, 16?
Yeah, from a young age. I don't remember too much about under 19s, to be honest. Mostly under 21 is what I can remember the most. But yeah, I was heavily involved. To be fair, I don't think I was involved too much at the youngest ages. More under 19s, under 21s. That's when I really kind of got my chance to play.
And then we were talking about it before we started. So getting in the 21s, you scored the free kick against Iceland, but I can't find it, and you're not totally convinced you can remember much about it.
No, I can't remember too much. I remember I scored a free kick, but I can't remember too much about it or about the game. I don't remember too much.
Like you said, and then you've broke into the under 21s. I think you were in form with Dundee United at the time, and Billy Stark was in charge of the under 21s at the time. Did you feel you were ready to make that step up to the 21s?
Yeah, because I was playing well for United at the time, so I felt like I was ready for it, like I'd be comfortable. And then I wasn't necessarily expecting to play straight away, but I got chucked in a game against, I think it was maybe against Georgia, St Mirren. I got chucked in for my debut, my first time in the 21, so I was delighted with that when it happened.
And then you went on to score 2 goals against Luxembourg, 2 goals that were absolutely amazing. See, when I look at that Scotland under 21 side, is there still that hunger in you? I mean, I know it's almost reported like it's finished and the door's closed, like you said, you're 24. Is there still that hunger when you see the likes of Ryan Jack only made his debut a season and a half ago, and in that under 21 side you've got Callum McGregor, John McGinn, Ryan Christie, Ryan Fraser, Stuart Armstrong, who have all went on to have several caps for Scotland. I think Stuart Finlay was in one of the 19 squads you were involved in, and you did. Yeah. You this is what I think some people forget. You were called into the full first team squad under Gordon Strachan.
Yeah. I was called in for the Euro qualifiers against Poland away, and I can't remember who the home game was against.
It was Georgia.
Georgia, yeah.
How did you find out about that? And is that? I think that came off the back of the United season. He just signed for Lisbon. I mean, that whole year and a half just seems absolute mayhem to me. How did it feel getting that call up to the national side?
It was unbelievable. That's it. I suppose every young kid does dream of. So to get it for the first time was an amazing feeling. Even not being involved in the 2 games, I wasn't too bothered at the time. I was just happy to be there, and just to be training with the kind of players that were there. It was just, it was an honour for me. I was still very young at the time, so it was a huge I felt it was a huge achievement for myself.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe quite a good talking point just now, not necessarily on yourself, but again, we spoke about him earlier, Billy Gilmour. Do you think, looking back, do you think there's a lot of value in yourself going away to a squad like that just to be involved over an under-21 squad that may actually really need a Ryan Gauld or a Billy Gilmour for 290 minutes in a important qualifier?
I think you can look at it both ways. I mean, you can look at it that it's important to get like game experience and game time, so like being in the under 21s, but the amount you can learn as well from training with the international players. You can look at it both ways. I don't think there's a negative neither of them. Really, I can't see one being better than the other.
Yeah.
I think if you get the chance, you get the chance, and it's whichever one's brilliant, because you're either going to be playing two important games or you're going to be training with, very, very good players.
On the Scotland squads, because we're sitting here right now on a Tuesday night, the squad's probably being announced right now, or it's going to be announced soon, because the 19s, the 17s and 21s have all been announced already today. I'm assuming that if you were going to be involved in the squad and the SFA had looked at you, you would have known by now, correct?
I would have thought so, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel, we kind of touched on it a wee bit, do you feel that you have been not even so much overlooked? Do you think you've probably not even been looked at?
Yeah, perhaps, but at the same time, like, we've got a lot of good, Scotland's got a lot of good midfielders, playing for Celtic, playing for Rangers, playing in the Championship, a few in the Premier League as well. So it's not as if it's just because I'm over in Portugal I'm not being looked at, but maybe just because we've got a lot of good midfielders already at home that are maybe playing at a higher level than I'm playing at. So maybe that's the reason that no one's been over to watch, or no contact's really been made.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the same argument. A lot of the arguments I'd heard made about Billy Gilmour was that he's something different to all the midfielders we have because he sits. And I think just from watching you a lot this season, I think the same argument can actually be made for yourself though, because Callum McGregor, John McGinn, Ryan Fraser, Stuart Armstrong, Ryan Jack, Scott McTominay, they are all what I would define as central midfielders. Like, it seems to have lost that box to box. It seems to be everyone's compartmentalised into sitting midfielder, central midfielder, attacking midfielder. I don't really feel with the exception of Ryan Christie in that squad, I don't feel that there is anyone else like yourself. I don't think there really is anyone else that plays in the hole that's maybe a wee bit more creative than others. Like James Forrest, Ryan Fraser are attacking wide players. We've got Lee Griffiths who's in tremendous form, so he should be called up and back in the squad. But I do think there's room for both Billy Gilmour and yourself to be different to the people that we have. And I do think, and you won't say it, but I do think there has been a bit of an overlook on something different into the squad. Do you still have aspirations?
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah. Like I said, it's everyone's dream to play for the national team. And speaking for Billy Gilmour, I've not seen too much of him. I've only seen his last game at the weekend there. He looks like he's going to be a very, very good player.
Yeah.
Someone that Scotland's going to get a lot of use out of. So hopefully he can kick on and keep doing what he's been doing so far.
I guess on the last thing is, what do you think you need to do? Because I sent you this picture over, and it's kind of a sad indictment of what I've been doing. Is that I sent you over a picture from the FIFA World Cup in 2022, and you are the captain lifting the World Cup for Scotland after a final against Germany. So you've got 2 years. You've got 2 years to not have made that prediction a waste. What do you think you need to do to get back in, or to get into that Scotland squad and get your first cap?
I think more of just what I've been doing. Scoring more goals, playing well, and I think it helps as well, playing for a team that's up at the top end of the table, fighting for a title, fighting for promotion, and basically just more of what I've been doing more of lately, which is scoring goals and setting up goals, which is what everyone looks for from attacking midfielders, I suppose.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for ourselves, I mean, I do hope that we do get to see you in a Scotland shirt, because I think that would be the biggest frustration. And I think although I was talking about my FIFA career there, now I'm laughing. I mean, that final was won by a Michael O'Halloran goal, so I think there's more work needing done in my prediction if that's going to come true. But yeah, Ryan, this has been absolutely amazing. I've really appreciated your time. I know you don't do this kind of thing very often. I've really enjoyed it. I think when you listen to it back, you really enjoy it as well, and I think people listening to the podcast will really enjoy your insight and what you've been doing, because I do think it's one of the more braver stories that I've had out of the people that I've been talking to, and I think it's something that really people should do more. The Scottish people do need to get out of the country, because
definitely encourage it.
It feels like there is an acceptance that, yeah, cool, I can play for a Dundee United, a Motherwell, a Hearts, and then I'll move to League One in England because the money's good. But you see other players like Barry Douglas went to Poland and was really successful out in Poland. Ziggy Gordon cannot speak highly enough of his time in Poland as well. It's just, I think people do need to try this stuff, and it makes for a much more exciting career than playing.
Yeah, definitely.
No disrespect to players playing in League One, but I do think there's competitions to go out and be won, and cultural experience to be had. So again, thank you very much for your time, Ryan.
Right, cheers, mate. Thanks.
See you later. Bye-bye. Scots Abroad is written and produced by John Walker and Gary Black.